You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get into our next discussion now. Nigeria is faced with security challenges on every front, from the decade-long insurgency in the northeast to banditry and kidnapping in other parts of the country. The new trend is attacks on police formations and INEC offices, as well as kidnapping of school children. This year alone, more than 500 students have been kidnapped from primary and secondary schools, as well as tertiary institutions across the country. President Muhammadu Buhari has cautioned state governments to review the policy of paying ransom to kidnappers. He says they must play their part and be proactive in improving security in and around schools. That's what we'll be talking about in the next couple of minutes. Now, I have with me in the studio the CEO of Insecurity, Wale Olaoye. It's good to have you join me.
Thank you.
Good. You're welcome to TVC.
Thank you very much.
And also in the studio is Ronke Adiago. She is the CEO, IA Foundation. It's good to have you join me, Ronke.
Thanks for
having me. Welcome home. It's good to have you home.
Thank you.
Great.
Nice to see you.
Great. Now, let me start with you, Wale, before I get to Ronke on this. The state of insecurity now it's a troubling situation where a lot of people have said we've never had it this bad before. We see week in, week out where students are attacked, kidnapped from schools. We've seen some died, parents, we've seen students themselves, teachers, and all of that. What do you make of all of this situation?
Well, first and foremost, I think a nation that fails to protect its future, a nation that will pay attention to the next generation. And that is, when we speak about the fundamental reason why governments really exist, is to ensure the safety of people and the lives of its citizens. But it's worse off when that now cascades to the next generation, where we expose our children to, or really guarantee them the future that they deserve. So nothing can be worse than that. In our business, we took this quite seriously a few years ago, and this year we just caused a study into the safety of schools in Nigeria, just to look at the trends in Nigeria, and it was a foreign discovery. I discovered that in 2009, this started in 2009, like the first incident that happened at Ikorodu with the Turkish private school in Ikorodu. That incident, even though we took it for granted, it was the first real attempt to look at incidents of kidnapping in schools, mostly in the private school. In 2009 and 2021, there's an average of 5 major attacks on schools in Nigeria, and it was only in 2011 and 2019 that we didn't have any incident at all, which was a surprise. So in 2013, we had a spike, which we didn't quite notice as a nation, until 2014, when we had 17 major attacks. What I got problem is the one in April 2014. That's the Chibok girls attack, was what now blew the lid open. But that year, we actually had 17 major attacks. It went down thereafter to 5. 2015 was 5, 2016 1, 2017 1, 2018 I think it was about 3, then 2019 nothing at all, until we now saw the spike in 2020 was about 4. Then suddenly, this is yet to be half year, 2021, we've had 8 major incidences. Now that tells you that something is, we're going back to the 2014 incident, but this is worse off now. Why? Because people are now beginning to see that it's the initial cost why this happened in the past was to kidnap these children, use them as shields, use them as negotiating tools to release prisoners with insurgents, and also, of course, for ransom taking. But the prognosis has been looking more dangerous and dire, where they began to see that this is paying off, and it is becoming more rewarding to do that. Now the trend is, if you follow the trajectory of risk in our country, when this happens with insurgents, and automatically they begin to see that this is a money-making venture. And before you know it, the copycat syndrome that we have in security begins to come in.
Bandwagon effect.
And you begin to wonder that, look, everything may not be the insurgents, and bandits and criminals may also begin to understand the gaps that this has opened, and you begin to see some very funny incidences that may not necessarily be even linked to insurgents. That's the risk, and that's what we need to begin to take very seriously.
We'll come back to the issue and discuss why this is a trend and what the missing link is. But let me come to Ronke here. Now, Ronke, the point there is the government is saying we don't want to pay ransom anymore. In fact, the National Assembly is going ahead to make laws against the payment of ransom. But for a parent who feels that when in fact, right from the Chibok girls to Dapchi and all of that, parents are saying, even the Greenfield, they're saying government doesn't necessarily talk to us the way they're supposed to. They don't engage us, so we're left to do all of these things by ourselves. But what government is coming up with a law against payment of ransom when an average parent will not just sit down and say, well, let's wait for government when your child is out there somewhere with criminals or with monsters. How difficult is that situation?
Right. Thanks very much for that question. As Wale rightly said, the first responsibility of government is to protect life and property. Yeah. But it seems our government is failing on that end. And therefore, people have to sort of protect themselves. It's very, very embarrassing and very sad that we find ourselves in that situation. But we are all parents. We know what it is like. I mean, I was watching the TV and seeing when the Greenfield students were released. Most of their parents had to sell their properties. So they've got their kid back, but they've lost their own. Exactly. What kind of country is that? So the way it seems, it's like government is sort of helpless, right? Now, you cannot on one hand renege on your responsibility and on the other hand say no, you can't pay ransom. I mean, what are the parents supposed to do? Would they just sit aside and let them kill their children? So they have to do what they have to do. Now, the reason why IA Foundation and Allogene is coming together is that we think government cannot do it all, and we think government is really struggling on this because it's happening too often these days. It's only happened on Sunday again. So what we are doing with Allogene is we're coming up with a summit on Friday between 10 and 12. It's a virtual event so everybody can join, right? To profile solutions to these insecurity issues. We cannot leave our children, the next generation, vulnerable to kidnapping, vulnerable to abduction. We've got to do something. We've got to move beyond the rhetoric of saying, oh, try and make sure you rescue those children. It doesn't go far enough. We need to prefer pragmatic solutions. We need to secure these children in school to make sure their learning environment is well secured. So when those bandits come, they would not be able to have access to take these kids away. Not being reactive. After they've taken the kids away, we start saying don't pay ransom. No, protect the kids within their learning environment.
All right, now Wale, the locations of schools. In fact, the original idea of locating schools a little bit outside of town is to they use it sometimes to open up places and also create an environment where there is no interferences. People can, serene environment, learn and all of that. Yes. But schools outside of the middle of town seem to be in regions that are prone to or exposed or vulnerable to kidnapping now. What can we be looking at this time?
Look, I schooled in the north for secondary school, so I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
In the far north, because of the mass, the land that we have, the open savannah is open, and they have land is huge. I mean, the north is quite big, so you find that schools are located far from governed spaces. Yes. Now, this if you look at the trends of what has happened in the last 10 years, 78% of the schools that were hit were actually schools that are isolated in remote locations, and that continues to be the trend even till today, up till Sunday. So if you look at the northeast and the north central and the northwest, that is the pattern. Why do we still keep those schools that are, one, isolated, two, nearer to ungoverned spaces? What do we need to do? Our suggestion is very simple. It's time to temporarily shut down schools that are, first and foremost, near ungoverned spaces, and create temporarily mega schools around those domains. So if you pick an area, say, look at Sokoto State, for instance. We look at Niger State, for instance. You have schools in Kutangora that may be located very far away, maybe to Yauri. Maybe you have about 5 or 10 schools that are so located. To manage the situation now, shut shut down those schools that are deemed to be nearer ungoverned spaces and create mega schools temporarily, because those kids need to be in school, where you provide, at the mega schools, you need to provide, one, early warning systems. You harden the access to those schools, and you create a proper response system where you can imagine having 10 schools in one place, one location. You've reduced the risk of those that are exposed to in the near the government spaces, and we have schools that are now mega schools. I'll be for the next 24 to 36 months, depending on how we manage the situation, because it is not right and it's not fair that we have. If for every child that loses life for going to school, it's a custody education, it's a right. So we've become accustomed to loss of life that we are no longer even moved with one single Nigerian dying. How much more young children? So we need to do all we need to do. Let us do it. Identify schools that are nearer ungoverned spaces nationwide. Shut them down.
So there has to be a proactivity here where government should do more than talking about the issue, assuring people.
Oh, absolutely. Do that one.
Okay.
Secondly, it's time to also begin to make security education and survival training as part of our school and education curriculum in Nigeria. Look, you have schools, they're warning signs. The things. Why do we have security program in schools? Why do we have security programs in organizations? Where if there's any incident that we suspect something happens, there's a program that we had that's initiated to ensure the safety of your staff here, for instance. So why can't we do the same thing for schools and make it part of our educational system? So so
everybody is conscious of
absolutely. And it has to be holistic, and it's not something that we expect to address with the one bank solution, with one single broad stroke, but we need to be holistic in our approach to risk and safety, and taking seriously the issue of human life. So, school safety is, look, in North America, they had that issue a few years ago. I mean, it's common occurrence that they shoot in schools, and they got together to create an active shooter program that affects the way they design schools. So school designs had to change on account of that, nationwide. So nobody could, at a certain time, nobody can access any school in America because there's a lockdown system. There is the active shooter program where every school had to change the physical, the access to every school. Had to change. That was a national act. So that is how serious nations do things. So we need to, we must take pragmatic steps to look from private schools to public schools. Don't forget to address this. You have public schools in rural areas. You have private schools in rural areas. You have public schools in urban areas. Private schools in urban areas. There are different approaches because the risks they're exposed to are different.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to this. Ronke, you talk about the summit coming up, and you're calling on the general public to be part of it one way or the other. What should people expect in a summit like this? Because when you are partnering with security agencies to say, okay, let us partner on how to educate people, what should people expect?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very careful in selecting the speakers here. So we've got security experts, even from America. We've got educational practitioners. We've got even students as well, because they are the one actually facing this problem. So we've got different group of people. We've got broadcasters. We've got your Babajide Ositoloju is one of our speakers because he's a security expert. We've got professionals there, and they're going to be profiling solutions which we will put together and submit to the government to say, these are our solutions, these are our recommendations for these issues we are facing. And we will work with you collaboratively to make sure we can implement all these suggestions which we've made. Now, one of the things I wanted to say earlier is that in addition to what Wale said, once they say they've taken 200, 300 children out of the school, I mean, give me a break. This cannot happen without an insider dealing. You can't have someone from the outside coming in to take these children without someone inside. Now, I don't know, in the UK we have what we call the Disclosure and Vetting Agency, whereby before you are employed to work in the school, they would have checked out your background, checked out the record, and make sure you are someone of reputation and someone with integrity before you work within the school environment. Because I think there are some undesirable elements working within the school, collaborating with these bandits that enable them to take these children away.
Well, that is a situation where there is adequate and accurate data. and the background, because we're talking about the background of people, there has to be history and there has to be record of such kind of people. In Nigeria, where you don't have enough data, I believe that is very challenging, I guess.
It's about political will.
Okay.
We are now collating NIN, isn't it? If we want to do something, we will do it.
And we're still seeing the challenges around NIN.
Exactly. So if we want to do it, if we put our political will in it, the government has a sense of national urgency towards it, it will happen. You understand? When they appoint people to political positions, they do the SSS check. Where do they get that record from? So we need to start vetting those who work in the school environment, because it's just unbelievable that 300 children will be whisked off just like that, as if they are animals. And I'm thinking, how can this happen? I mean, when I was listening to the news on Sunday, I'm thinking, oh my God, why is this happening again? And then I'm hearing that even the governor of the state has left the country. I mean, where is the sense of urgency in that?
Solution. From what the report we got.
Can I just ask you to
yes, go ahead.
Actually, vetting is not a big deal.
Okay.
Serious organizations in Nigeria today insist that the manpower, the staff, are vetted. We have a business that is wholly focused on verification and vetting for pre-employment of the staff, going to dealings of business dealings and business due diligence, and so it exists. So if private organizations are able to do that, I mean,
how much more government?
So it is a possibility. Let me just answer Ronke's question. Possibility.
All right.
Once the will is there, it can be done.
Let me stay with you, Wale. You talked about the issue of early warning signs and all of that, but let's narrow it down to the parent and then the school.
Yes.
When we talk about security around schools, what are the first things that for instance, if I am the proprietor of a school and I am going to talk about, okay, fine, talk to me, advise us. What should we be looking at on daily basis, even though we've not been attacked, but what should we be looking at?
I appreciate that question so much. Now, it goes back to even us as a country. Now, let me talk about the schools.
Yeah.
You do not, security is not the hardware. It's not the guns that you have. It's not the armored tanks or the men that trot guns over the place. Security starts from design. You must be deliberate about security. So you ask schools. Government, by the way, I'm saying this boldly, and something has to change around how schools are set up, both private schools and public schools. The starting point is this. Every school must have a security program. So it's a design of policies that you have to adhere to that will lead to your designing the security plan and program of the school. Meaning, every school must have, one, a security coordinator first and foremost. Two, the point is about vetting. It's part of the security program. So before you employ anybody, the teachers, if it's a boarding school, your drivers, your cook, the people that work in the kitchen, the schools, in the hostels, must be vetted and background checked. Now, you must also design, the hostel was designed and secured in a particular manner. You need to also safeguard the lives of the children when they're in the hostels and when they're in the schools. So are there layers that you have built? Are there programs that ensure that at certain times there are alarm and response systems? Is there a clear sight to every activity in the school, and also that allows you to have intrusion detection systems and panic alarm systems? So all these things are, you want to have a building. You can't build anything without your building plan. So for every school, it must be mandated, it must be compelled to have a security program and security plan. Is your master plan that tells you, in case there's even a threat, or maybe you identify this guy, look, suddenly you find 10 men on motorcycles riding towards the school. You will have seen these guys about a kilometer. So what do you do? It's part of the drill. So imagine how the soldiers have been trained on risk, on managing risk and how to prevent themselves in those situations, or what to do. They see people coming a kilometer away. Who tells them what to do? How do you know what to do? They're perplexed. So it's by design. Why do you have muster points? Why do you have Why do you have safe havens designed in school? How do you have a place? Is it a place you need to run to?
By the way,
these things are by design.
Yeah, by the way, you just mentioned muster points now. Can you enlighten us? Because sometimes you go to companies, large companies, you see some small signboard somewhere saying muster point. And people are like, okay, what is muster point? Very good. So can you enlighten us on that?
Look, in operational health and safety procedures, it's a place where, in case of emergency or in case of fire in the facility, where everybody needs to assemble. So you always find exit points, fire points. It must lead you to a place where everybody must gather. That's the muster point, where you take the head count. So there's fire in TVC, for instance. God forbid that. TVC must have a muster point where you want to know at that point in time, at this time there are 100 people in this building.
Yes.
And after that incident, you want to show that you're able to count and account for everybody in the building.
Yes.
So everybody must be wired to assemble at the muster point.
Okay.
So it's supposed to go to an emergency.
Okay. So it's an assembly point where everyone should.
Absolutely.
And in that case,
briefing, and you also know what to do next.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Ronke, the summit you talked about. How can anybody be part of it? You say it's open, but how can anybody be part of it?
Right. As I said, it's a partnership between IE Foundation and Allergen.
Okay.
And on all our social media platforms, we've sent out the link because you need to register.
Okay.
And on my way into the studio this morning, I checked and about 537 people have registered.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So the links are there on all social media, so by all means they can. And then tomorrow we are sending out the Zoom link. Yeah, so people can join in. Everybody can join from all over the world.
All right.
You know, and it will be a good opportunity to come together to find a solution because the government needs help.
All right. So it's a virtual meeting. So it helps relax the issue of COVID-19 protocols.
Absolutely.
And all of that.
And that's the reason why we're doing it virtual, because initially when we started planning, it was meant to be a physical event.
Right.
Lagos State government had given us a big hall in Alausa.
Wow.
But when the government changed the rules, we had to take it all virtual, which is even better because you don't have more people being able to log in and be part of the whole summit. Really.
Great. All right. We have to leave it here now. Thank you so much, Ronke Adiabo, for your time on the program. You're the CEO, IE Foundation. Thank you very much for coming.
Welcome.
Thank you. And Wale Olaoye, thank you very much. You're the CEO, Insecurity. Thank you very much for coming.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.